In New Orleans, the supernatural isn't just a local rumor, it's etched into the landscape. The white stone of Marie Laveau's tomb is perpetually covered in handwritten X's, left by those seeking the city's older, more restless forces. These stories are woven into the historic architecture of the French Quarter, where streets like Bourbon and St. Peter have functioned as the backdrop for the city's darkest folklore since the mid-20th century. Many of the city's historic hotels are built into these same aging structures, massive brick corner buildings with arched entries and heavy shutters that seem designed to keep the past locked inside. The Grand Crescent Hotel is the site of one such legend. In the 1950s, a wealthy surgeon and his bride checked into room 703. That night, the doctor ended his wife's life before turning a gun on himself, leaving a stain on the room that local lore says never truly faded. Ashley, a 25-year-old investigative journalist, traveled to New Orleans with a different objective. She had built a career on investigating these haunted landmarks, utilizing her background in research to expose the physical reality behind the myths. Ashley viewed room 703 as a simple case study. Her plan was to stay one night, use her equipment to document the silence, and provide a logical explanation for the rumors once and for all. She arrived with her logic as a shield, confident that anything she couldn't measure or record simply didn't exist. She was about to test that logic against a history that didn't follow her rules. The transition happened the moment the elevator doors opened. The lively lobby was replaced by a heavy silence stretching down the empty 7th floor. At the desk, the receptionist had grown pale at the mention of the room number, handing over a rusted antique brass key instead of the hotel's standard digital card. Dim wall sconces cast long, distorted shadows across the faded wallpaper, and every step Ashley took caused the floorboards to groan beneath the layers of old carpet. Room 703 sat at the very end of the corridor. When Ashley finally reached for the heavy mahogany door, the brass handle felt like ice. She began her work immediately, setting up a tripod and a 4K camera, while a shotgun mic was positioned to catch the slightest acoustic change. The first sign of an anomaly was a sudden, violent bang. Ashley turned to find her heavy suitcase, which she had left by the door, had tipped over and rolled several feet into the center of the room. Ashley recorded the event but dismissed it, attributing the movement to a sudden draft or a settling building. She wasn't ready to let the room dictate the narrative. At 1 a.m., a heavy, rhythmic knocking at the door woke her from a shallow sleep, followed by a voice from the hallway announcing room service. Through the peephole, Ashley saw a man in a vintage tuxedo standing perfectly still. His eyes appeared hollow and lifeless as he held a silver platter toward the door. When she opened the door to tell him he had the wrong room, the man slowly lifted the heavy silver lid. Resting on the plate was Ashley's own head, severed and bloodied. She squeezed her eyes shut and screamed. When she opened them a second later, the hallway was empty, and the silence of the 7th floor had returned. Panicked, she rushed to her camera. She needed the footage to prove her mind had simply played a trick on her, that she had witnessed a vivid hallucination brought on by the room's history. But the camera would not play back. The screen showed only a corruption error, and her audio recorder, while functioning, had captured nothing of the knocking or the voice, only the sound of the door opening, and then her own scream. With her equipment failed and the evidence gone, Ashley was left in the dark. The tools she used to define reality were no longer providing answers. The temperature in the room dropped so sharply that Ashley's breath began to mist in the air. She retreated to the bathroom, desperate to splash cold water on her face and regain her composure. As she looked into the mirror, she saw a figure standing behind her, a man in a tattered, blood-stained surgical gown from the 1950s, his skin looking gray and decayed in the dim light. In the reflection, his hands reached for her throat. Ashley spun around to defend herself, but found only the empty bathroom and the sound of the dripping faucet. She ran for the door, but the handle wouldn't move, as if held shut from the other side. Behind her, the lights in the room began to flash violently, and the old furniture seemed to vibrate with a frantic, chaotic energy. Security guards eventually forced their way into the room to find a scene of total violence. Ashley was alone, but she was being thrown against the bathroom mirror, her head slamming into the glass as if gripped by something invisible. The guards witnessed her being forced into the jagged shards over and over again. To those watching, she was struggling against a vacuum, fighting an attacker that had no physical presence in the room. It took 3 men to pull her away from the shattered glass and restrain her. Ashley continued to scream until her body finally gave out, and she collapsed into shock. In the hospital, surgeons worked to repair the deep lacerations across her face. Ashley insisted that she wasn't the one moving her body, that she could feel the sensation of hands pulling her toward the mirror. During the investigation, an older staff member mentioned that in the original 1950s crime, the surgeon hadn't just killed his wife, he had killed her by smashing her head into that very bathroom mirror. Today, Ashley's physical scars have mostly faded, but her life has changed. She can no longer stand in front of a mirror without the fear that something is watching from the other side of the glass. The Grand Crescent Hotel still stands, and room 703 still accepts guests. But for Ashley, the investigation is over. She no longer looks for evidence. She simply knows what she saw.